As you guys can see, I've gone a little bit further in the sculpt, so I'm gonna take a few steps back just to show you guys a little bit of what I did. All right, I just kind of went ahead. I added a little bit of a little bit more definition to it. I went in and I sculpted up some more of the lower lid, the top, made it a little more symmetrical. I pulled this little flappy piece out a little bit. It was a little sunken in, so I pulled it out. So now we're getting kind of a decent, eye lid coverage over the eye over there. So that is, it's in a good situation for now. And I also did go ahead and add, just a worry lines just to give him a little more interest. All right. So our character is, whoops, whoops, going okay. So today I want to just kind of start sculpting up the ear a little bit, right? And usually, as you guys know from the previous classes, what I have been doing is I usually use a sphere or a cube or something to start sculpting the body part. But since we've got our bust here, I'm gonna continue using our bust to kind of get us, you know, there as well. It's like, knocking out two birds with one stone, so to speak. All right, so let us continue with the ear, and we're gonna do the same thing that we usually do, which is we're gonna find some good reference. Just because I think I know what the ear looks like, I don't wanna mess it up. So, first thing I'll do is I'm gonna go into my geometry node here, my geometry tab. I'm gonna reduce the subdivs. All right, so that now, all right, my subdivision level is a little more manageable. And I did retopologize once again just to give myself, some better topology. And I roughed in some stuff for the ear, but it's not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of smooth it out so I can start over with that. Let me turn off what I did. I held down shift, boom, smooth it out just like that. All right. So now I just want to find some reference and then use that. So let's go back to our Discord channel where I have uploaded copious amounts of reference for you guys to use in this thread called Anatomy for Sculptors. All right. So now let's find some reference for ears. And I also have books that I use to reference as well. And I always have my handy dandy silver skull here, just for marker placement and things like that. Just in case, because like I said, guys, you don't know what you think you know, right? You don't know the hand as well as you think. You don't know the eye as well as you think. You may use it. You may think you see it every day, but our memory isn't as good as we always believe it to be. So let's find some reference for some ears. This is perfect right here. All right. So right here, we've got a pretty decent breakdown of what's going on with the ear here. All right. Oops. I'm quite sure. So, yeah, we've got some pretty good reference right here. All right, and yeah, like they've got this outer frame. This is because it's for sculptors, right? They're gonna give you the planes of it so that you can start with the planes of it, right? Like try to block those in and then smooth it out. So we're just gonna use this as our template, our reference, right? And we are going to sculpt using this. So I'm going to drag my reference up here a little bit for myself and start to use my Wacom tablet to sculpt our ear up, right? And as you guys can see, they've got just some corner planes here, and if it was a regular ear that I was making, I would, mimic it for one for one. But what I want to show you guys is how to take this structure for a regular ear and then adapt it to like a creature ear or something like that. Because a lot of the times, if you're making human ears, chances are a human ear already exists somewhere. If I'm being honest with you, you're going to probably find a greeble or a mesh of it somewhere, and you're going to start with it there, right? If I'm being 100% honest with you, a lot of the times, a lot of the faster artists, those guys, they have like a library, even if it's ears or whatever that they've made themselves, right? They're going to have a library of little things that speeds up their workflow, right? So they're not every time they're sculpting the ear all over again. It's good to know how to sculpt the ear if you have to do it. But what you're going to do if you're going to do this job for a living, if you're going to do this job, you're going to get yourself, I have a library of body parts in a weird, not in a weird way, but like 3D models, 3D assets that I can use to pop in like an ear, a nose, an eye socket, an eyeball, a pupil, right? And different detail levels, right? Because different projects require different things. So you might just have like a decent library of base meshes for yourself to use. So, but it's always important to know how to just sculpt it in general. So we're gonna do that here. All right. So with this ear, let's start with the overall shape. Right now it's kind of down and flopsy. All right, let's turn on X. Let's turn on our symmetry too. X is our symmetry, and I've got my move tool selected. Remember guys, move tool is B, M, and V on the keyboard, right? BMV will get you to your move tool. Don't forget that. All right. So now we've got our character here, and if I start hitting the brackets, it increases the size of my brush. If I reduce with the close, the other left bracket, boom, small, big, practice that a little bit so you get more comfortable with it. All right. So I'm going to increase the size a little bit, and then, all right, I'm going to start, just seeing if I like what it's doing, right? And this is just to test overall shape, right? Do I like it? Do I like that, it's a droopy? Do I want something that's more happy? That's an option that I have, all right? Or do I want something all right? And another thing you want to keep looking at is the silhouette value. All right. This silhouette value is pretty interesting. All right, it's very interesting. If I turn it a little to the side, it's not as interesting because you lose a lot of that form that way, right? Let's look at the side profile. It's a little interesting, right? What you might want to do, what I might want to do is maybe bring in the nose a little bit, right? And like I said, I'm doing that. I'm watching this to see what my profile is doing, to see if it's something interesting or not. All right, and then I can still grab this guy here. All right. So I'm getting something a little more interesting. Is this not interesting enough? This top part here. All right, and sometimes I'll go on a little tangent like this where I'm trying to see what's an interesting shape, or you know what's cool, what's not. And this is where you're experimenting, right? If you're working on something for yourself, with concepts that you get online and things like that, it's pretty much set in stone for what you need to do, right? Like, you're looking at the reference, you do what the reference is looking at, right? With something more like this, you're more like, I want to see this. You're thinking up a backstory for the character. You're thinking of how this kind of character would live, like what, why he would have such a long nose, or the really big eyes. Maybe, he's nocturnal, or, anything that you're thinking to help make some of those judgments when it comes to a character that you're making for yourself. So let's go back to the ear where, I kind of like this flopsy thing, but let's go back to our, there we go. That's our OG. I like this guy. Maybe boom, boom, boom. Okay. All right. So that's fine. So let's do BCB. That's just my clay buildup. BCB. BC. Actually, L. I'm just going to use my standard clay tool, which has more of a round buildup to it. So I don't mind that, especially for something like the ear, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to build it up using this clay tool, which has more of a round, like you guys saw, like a round dispensing kind of clay to it. And I'm going to use this, and then I'm going to use the planer tool to get some of those planes that we're seeing here. And right now my intensities is 50. That's kind of a lot. All right, so I'm going to reduce it quite a bit down to like 9 or something. And actually, so that we start from scratch, just so you guys, if you're going to do it yourself, this is what you're going to do. All right, and let me make sure that, another problem is we're on the higher subdivision. I do not want to do any of this sculpting on the higher subdivision. I want to do all of my sculpting on whatever my lowest subdivision is. You want to have decent subdivision, not too crazy. You see how you can see the individual boxes still on my character, right? That's my subdivision level. If you look up here, I've got 156,000 active points, total of 1.7 million. I'm guessing this is the poly count right here. So you don't want this to go too crazy just yet. You don't want your poly count to go too crazy just yet. All right, when you're getting into the detailing phase, all right, you can up a little bit, because you don't want any detail to be lost. But here, I'm gonna hit Shift, boom, just kind of smooth this out. Because if I go up to the next subdivision, right, and I smooth it out again, it's really smooth. I know that this is really for real smooth, right? I've got kind of my ear shape now. So what I want to do is I want to kind of make it just start off planar. Let's do the planar thing so you guys can know how to do. You guys can know how to. Let's turn on my lazy mouse. All right, and this is just the planer brush. All right, this is the planer brush. It's B. If you hit P on your keyboard, right, L. All right, you can also do planer, flatten, or polish. Polish, just kind of, see what it kind of does? It's kind of trying to harden the edges of it for you, polishing it up for you. But I like the planer brush, BPL, because what it does is it gives us nice flat planes. It goes a little crazy. So, like I said before, some of these brushes, that their defaults are pretty intense, right? So you want to control that. You want to control that by either going up here, right? Remember, or you could hit spacebar and then control the intensity through this as well. All right. So remember, when we're looking at, hopefully you guys can still see this reference that I have up here for the ear. So for the ear, if you look at our OG reference as to the plane, so you want to notice how it's connecting to the face as well, right? You want to keep track of, okay, so whenever I put this ear here, what part of the face, what part of the jaw is it connected to? Let me make that a little bigger, right? Because what you're going to notice is the bottom of the ear and coincides to almost the edge of your jaw. So it's usually close to that line for people. All right. So that's a usual marker that artists use to determine where to put the ear. So using this planer tool, I can just kind of put up some of the planes of the ear here for this guy. All right. Let's reduce this a little more because it's a little intense. It's a little intense. All right, I can reduce this focal shift right here, which is that inner circle. And then now, so that whenever I'm making my planes, I'm getting nice lines. And with this planer tool, what a lot of people do is they'll use this in conjunction with the B, D, and S with the Damien Standard tool. And they'll use the Damien Standard tool to essentially accentuate some of those planar lines that you're getting there. Right? Just to make the planes more obvious. All right. E, F. If you can do flatten, and then I can go here, just do flatten. Like I said, there's some of these tools do very similar things. All right. Flatten, and I'm kind of just treating it like clay, like putty, and so now that we've got our ear kind of ready to go, I'm gonna start smoothing it out a little bit. All right. Now we can go back to our reference. Let's find the one for the actual pieces. All right. So now the idea is I've started with something plain. Now I'm gonna construct some of the features of this ear. So BCL to get to my clay build-up tool. All right, I've got my Z add on. Boom. I'm gonna reduce it a little bit like that, and I'm just gonna start building. All right. So the first thing I'm gonna build is that dark blue area, all right, which is the biggest part of our ear, and that comes out. All right. Boom. Like so. And then you have this inner ear portion. All right. This inner ear. And you've kind of got like part of where the lobe, right, connects. And I'm using, like I said, you guys, this is how you would use a human ear to kind of help you sculpt something that is more fantastical. So now I'm going through, I'm just adding some of those pieces in there. All right. making sure that I'm getting, boom. And right here, I would imagine that, like, it connects here. It's got a little bit of meat, you know, and maybe over time as it drags down and it's flopping down, right, it would maybe cause a crease, right here, right, something like that. It probably won't be a crease as big as this, right? But a small crease where skin and things fall. I would imagine there'd be a crease there just because of how this creature kind of is. So little things like that, right? That helps sell the believability of your character. And I haven't even addressed this nonsense I did in the back. But yeah. So here we go. It's looking good. Okay, my smooth is on 100% intensity right now, so I'm just gonna reduce that and smooth this out. All right, so BP, planar, and then I'm just gonna kind of flatten this out a little bit. Just make these planes. It's kind of protruding a little much for me. Hold down shift. Let me actually B, C, and L for my clay tool. Maybe actually just build up a little bit more like this. All right, so now let's deal with a little bit of the back of the ear. All right, I would imagine something similar happening in the back of the ear too. All right, we've still got this muscle that's coming straight out, and then it's attaching to the clavicle. All right, let's not forget that. And I'm just still using that little clay, round clay build-up tool, or build-up brush, I should say, not tool. They have the subtools. This is a brush. All right, so I'm just using that to build it up a little bit. Okay, smooth this guy out a little bit more. Shift. So there's two different types of smooths that you can do inside of ZBrush. Right, so the normal smooth is if you just shift, right? If you just shift and then hold down shift and drag around, you can smooth it. But if you hold down shift and let it go while you're still smoothing, there's a different kind of smoothing it does. It does a continuous smooth, and if you hold it on certain areas or on the model itself, it kind of does a much more even smooth throughout the entire thing. All right, so there's two different types of smooths that you can do with your keyboard function inside of ZBrush. So now I'm just building up a little bit more. So if I go to BDS, which is my Damien standard tool, right there, boom, I can do, all right, just start adding more, accentuating some of those things that I'm doing. I'm still going to take it away because the thing about this is when people start noticing the lines that you're drawing, then it starts taking them out of believing it a little more, right? You don't want people to notice the lines. You want them to notice how the shapes are flowing into each other, all right? So a lot of the times what people who are new to ZBrush will do is like they'll try to like outline their model so it's like super, so don't do that, right? With the muscles and things like that, they kind of go in and out of each other. So if you do a bevel or like you do a shape, let me do BCB to illustrate what I'm talking about. BCB. All right. If you're trying to do something real, BCL. if you're trying to make something look realistic to the human anatomy or something like that, right? And you do increase my intensity to get my point across, right? And I have a piece right here or something, and I just go in and I just like that. No smooth, no connection, no nothing. It's not gonna look real because that's just not how our bodies work. Nothing on our body, unless you have like some sort of implant, right? You're never gonna get like a nice perfect shape on your body, right? That's not how we're built, right? So if you do something where you have like an indent or something, you want to smooth it out so that the transition between that, right, looks much more natural. All right? And that's what a lot of the times is what I see in artwork is, because you can still see it, but it's not, because what you think you're doing is, I'm letting it be known that I know that this thing is there. But what you're letting people really know is, I don't know what I'm doing, so I think I hope I'm putting it in the right place, you know. So you want it to be subtle, right? So if you're gonna put a muscle or something somewhere, and you're using this to kind of define it, well, go ahead and smooth out that transition. Don't just leave it in limbo. Don't just leave it there, because it just looks weird and it looks very very beginnerish, right? So, and this is a crazy amount. You can see how, right? So if I want to smooth this, I'm gonna have to go up here. I'm just gonna smooth it out, right? You want that transition to look way more natural, right? Our bodies are super subtle, right? It's covered by skin and all, like, you want it to be subtle, 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 subtle. All right. That's why whenever I'm drawing, I'm not going to 100 intensity with my brush every single time, because it gets so much that you're working. It's like you're working against yourself. All right, so build some clay up a little bit here. What time is it? 12:47. All right, that's not bad. That's not bad. Let's continue with the part of the ear. All right. So now let's continue. We've got this guy. We've got my clay tool. Building this guy up a little bit more. All right, and it's not the biggest part. You just want to make sure that you see how, like, in this shape right here, you see how the this little piece tucks behind, right, this major piece right here. You just kind of want to get those little subtleties in there. You see how these lines show that this right here is indented, this right here is a little extruded, then in here is indented. You just want to kind of get some of those subtle little features in there. And once you start adding those things in there, paying attention to those little details, your models will start looking a whole lot better. All right, so I've reduced the intensity of my clay buildup tool now, because what I want to do is I want to just start adding some of those. Let me do BMV. I'm going to use my move tool, and I just kind of want to give myself a little bit more, a little flopsy, right? A little more, just so I have a little more to work with on my ear, because he's kind of got like a cow ear / human ear vibe to it, and then he's got this giant tumor that I made for him in the back, so it's gonna age well. All right, so let's BCL, and then just reduce the size of the brush again. Boom. All right, making sure that it's tucking right behind this guy. And then remember, This guy. All right. Just those little things. All right. And then Alt does the opposite of whatever I have selected. So this then goes in a little bit, right? Then I bring this guy out. I'm just roughing these shapes in, right? Roughing it in, roughing it in, roughing it in. And then right here, it's indented. So I'm holding down Alt again. And then I'm just making sure that it indents. All right. See that? And as usual, I'm doing it on the lower subdivision so that whenever I go to the higher subdivision, it looks a lot better. All right. Another thing I might do is maybe add a little meat down here. A little extra something. All right, shift to smooth. Bring this down and then Alt. All right, boom. Alt to take it away. Let go of Alt, and I'm building it back up. Building it back up. Shift to smooth. All right. All right. All right, now what I'm gonna do is the way they're falling right now is a little too further out for me. So I'm gonna use my BMV. I'm gonna use my move tool. I'm gonna make this thing kind of massive. I'm just gonna try to move it back. All right, here's something I probably haven't shown you guys yet, which is masking, which is a pretty cool function in here, which allows me to isolate different parts and different pieces, right? It allows me to isolate different parts and pieces and mess with them individually. So what I'm going to do is, if you look here, I'm going to hold down Control, right? If I hold down Control, you can see that it says mask. There's a little plus sign to the left of that. If you can't see it, it's right here. All right. So there's a plus sign. It says mask right there. There's several types of masks that I can use. Once I click this, if you look over here to the left-hand corner of the screen, you can see right here the type of brush it is, which is the mask pen, and the type of brush stroke it is, which is the freehand stroke. What that means is if I click over my object and if I hold down Control and if I start to paint, it's going to paint this black mask for me, right? So now I have this mask. Let me Control Z that for you so you guys can see me do it again. Control, boom. I created this thing which is called a black mask. Now, if I hold down Control while I'm outside of my object or my subtool and I click anywhere in this gray area right here, boop, it's going to do what? It's going to invert that mask, right? I'm going to click it again, boom, it's going to invert that mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, boom, invert. Now what happens is I can do anything I want to this, but nothing outside of that moves, right? Because I have this area masked off. It's a way of isolating different parts of my mesh to help me work on it without affecting other parts of the mesh. All right, does that make sense to you guys? All right, if it doesn't, you just got to try it out. All right, that's my advice. Just try it out. All right. So before I do that, I'm going to show you guys another type of mask that exist, right? So here is what I'm going to call a square mask or a rectangular mask. So this freehand, if I grab out here, I'm holding down control, and if I drag this rectangle, it's going to mask in a rectangle for me. All right? And the cool thing about some of this stuff is, you guys are probably like, why the hell would I ever need that? Right? The cool thing about some of these masks is, if I get a mask like that, I can do a bunch of things. Like, I can extract this mesh, turn it into clothing. I can extract this mesh, turn it into a hat, accessories, right? I can also, right, if I wanted to, I hope this does not break the mesh. Oh man, this might destroy the mesh. But I'll do it anyway. For science! Alright, let's go. Uh I'm gonna inflate it, right? So I have my mask to inflate balloon. You see? Like, once I have it isolated, I can do different things with it, right? So there's a lot that you can do with mask selections, right? So if I wanted now, I could go in here, right? Start messing with other things, and you guys get the idea. I feel like I've at this point beat this idea of masks dead with a with a stick. I hide things, you don't hide things. That's how they work. So I want to hide this ear that I have. So I'm just going to draw a mask, control boom, and if I want to remove some areas from this mask that I've already painted, while I'm holding down control, if I hold down alt at the same time, it does the opposite of that. All right? So now I can invert my mask, right? I can just select the parts that I want. And just like any other brush, you can increase or decrease the size. So I'm going to decrease the size, and now I can get even more specific with how I'm painting my mask. All right? So today you guys have learned how to use some masks, right? So now if I just want this area right here, I can make sure that I have just the area that I want. Alt, right? Holding down control and alt will allow me. And if I mess up, oh no, I messed up. Control Z, right? Real quick, Control Z, and I'm back to where I was. All right. So I'm gonna Control Alt. Right. Another thing that happens is, whenever you're doing this, you might accidentally, right, have your mask, and you might hold down control and click. What happens when you click on the mask itself is it's going to feather the edges of that mask, right? So now watch this. If I click again, you see how this little area right here, right? This little area gets a little faded, right? What it's doing is it's feathering that edge of the mask for me. All right. So now I've got my mask isolated, my mask isolated for my ear. All right. Let's now do B, C, and L. All right. Isolated. I can now individually work on this guy. Holding down shift to smooth. All right. Boom. Alt to take it away, then click. All right, that's if I'm on Z add. Remember, if I'm on Z sub, it naturally defaults to taking it away. Now to do an add, I have to hit alt. Right? So if you're wondering, man, my tool's not doing what his doing, depending on if you have it on Z add or Z sub, it will change the direction of your brush. Remember that. All right? So now I've got it on Z sub, messed my own self up. All right. Now I've got my boom, everything's kind of connecting, right? What I don't like is every time I kind of build up this area, the geometry over there gets a little wonky. So I don't like that. So I might, go ahead and smooth it out, go to the next subdivision level, right? This is when you can start going to the next subdivision level. Let me shift smooth this out. And there's this little point right here that's annoying me a little bit too. You see, whenever I try to build up, it comes to a point. So I'm not really being a big fan of that right now. So, there's a lot of advantages to building it up to a certain point and then moving on to the next subdivision, which is what I'm going to do right now. All right. So let's move up one subdiv level. We're going to go into our geometry tab right over here. I don't know if you guys can make sure. I don't know, that's gotta be annoying. Alright. So now let's go up one subdivision. Boom, just like that. So now here, what I can do is I can go BP. I'm going to start polishing this guy up a little bit. Just start polishing it up a little bit. Increase. And just start polishing. Actually, let's look at I got everything wrong. Alright. Polish this guy up a little bit. Alright. BCL once again. Now I'm going to go back to kind of just defining this guy a little bit more. Alright, so now he's got the bottom part that goes into this top part. Yeah, smooth that out. Boom. So it transitions nicely into each other. Just like so. Alright. Looks like it comes kind of to a head a little bit. And then just a little bit like that. Boom, just from some of that reference we've got. All right. All right. Just like that, right? Okay. Let's focus on the back of the ear a little bit, a part that we don't usually look at. All right. Just kind of knock it back a little bit. Knocking it back a little bit. Shift, smooth. All right. Shift to smooth it out. And then just kind of build up some forms in the back a little bit. Oops. Give a little bit of interest back here. All right. Just imagining like, oh, okay, it's folding all the time. Right? That's like what I like. What part of it is kind of figuring out the story of how the body part would work, if it's what it's doing at any given moment. Right? If it's having a fold, then what's it doing? If it's, you know, is he like a dog? Does he get happy and then it raises up, or is it just flopping around like Jar Jar Binks? you know. So, and another thing, let's see. Would this even work? Let me see how this will work. Let's go to deformations. Let's go to gravity. So this is like a gravity. Let's see. Yeah, I was trying to. Adding a little bit of gravity to it. Alright. And you guys can't be afraid to like move around stuff that you're working on. You can't be afraid to be like, oh man, it's okay. You're gonna mess up a bunch of these models. Alright, nobody's gonna expect you to be perfect, so mess it up. Make it ugly, you know? I think that feels a little better, right? When it's just kind of flopping, right, like this. It just feels a little bit more natural. Maybe add a little bit more gravity to it. Alright, make it droop a little bit more. Alright. And the reason that it's only affecting this little area that I've got selected, remember guys, is the mask. See how I brought that back? I'm joking, guys. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's the mask. Keep the mask. Keep using the mask, and you can isolate areas. You know, do little cool functions to it like that. So now we've got kind of our ear, our character going over here a little bit. This is cool. He's turning out pretty weird looking. I like it. I like how weird he is. This is very interesting. I don't even know where I was going with this, but like I was just sketching. So BC, no, it's BDS. BDS. No, BDS. Jesus Christ. I keep hitting BDC. All right. So with this guy, it's pretty interesting. With characters like this, right? There's, what time is it? It's 1:08. All right, I'm gonna go maybe another 5 minutes, and then dismiss you guys. I'm gonna look at your threads to see what you guys posted. Then I'm gonna dismiss you guys for the day. I don't want to hold you guys up too much longer. But yeah, so yeah, today we worked on the ear. It looks pretty interesting. Looks pretty cool. We used the reference that we had of the ear to kind of sculpt as something that looks interesting. Then we used and learned about masking and masking, assets, masking pieces, so that we can do different functions to them. I think I've showed you how to do the little eyebrow thing, but that's not what any of this is about. That was just me messing around. Also, let's see. Oh yeah, the paneling stuff. This stuff back here. So to do this, yeah. If you stop at this point, that was the class. This is me going extra just to show you guys something interesting that you can do in here. So a lot of people who do like sci-fi things and and little things like that. What they'll do is they'll do this paneling stuff with the Damien standard, and what they'll use it for is they'll use it to kind of like sketch out whatever idea that they're having with paneling and stuff like that for like sci-fi characters. So it's kind of cool if you guys want to ever test it out. It comes inside of ZBrush, so they'll do stuff like that. And I don't know. I'm not a sci-fi. I'd have to look at some reference. You know me, like I'm a reference guy. I'm not a. I know this off the top of my head because I'm some amaze balls artist. I just be. I need reference. I need good reference, and then maybe they'll rough in some like. You guys know what I'm talking. You guys know this kind of sci-fi stuff that I'm talking about, right? This very what's a game that I would maybe Evangelion-ish. What's that game? Warhammer? Is it Warhammer or Warframe? One of those. It's very like bio-organic mech-ish kind of characters.
That sounds more like Warframe to me.
Is it Warframe? Is that what it is?
I believe.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. But yeah, they do stuff like that, and they'll use like some of this stuff to do the detail paneling and stuff like that. And a lot of artists, this was very popularized for a while, and now like the art style is, I think it's grown and it's evolved more, a little bit more than this. So like, and it can get really intricate, with some of the stuff they do, and you can do stuff like this. And then I would just go back in here, go to deformation, maybe do a little inflate on it or something. Oh, my bad. I probably didn't say this, but to clear the mask, if you have a mask control, if you drag outside of the workspace, it'll clear the mask. If you didn't know that. All right. But that looks ugly as hell, so I'm going to remove that. But yeah, you guys get the idea. And what people will do is they'll then, like, they'll section off some of these parts and then start extracting them as individual kind of elements and stuff like that to make, like, the panel work for sci-fi creatures, sci-fi characters, and things like that. I think, what's his name? Vitaly Bulgarov uses a similar technique. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I have to figure out how to clear this all off. Let's go back a little bit. There we go. Whoops, too far. Too far forward. Too far back. All right, here we go. Ears are good. Everything's good. Looking okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions before I check out your threads?
Not having to do with this, but I do have a question later.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Let's take a render of our image. All right, guys. Let me show you guys how to do a real quick render of this guy. So what I would do is I would go into this render setting right here. Right now it says preview. You can either do that preview, this preview right here, or you can do best. If you click on best, it'll do a quick little render for you, and you'll have something that looks like that. Let me clear out no board. So it makes it kind of hard to see what's going on. All right. So that's if I wanted to do a render of our character or creature kind of thing over here. So let's go to my render settings. And another really good way to do it is you would click on this BPR render, and it's gonna fire off a rendering at 16 samples. The base settings for whatever you guys are doing right now is just fine. You don't need to go no higher than that. If you're doing something miraculous and I need to see it and you need to present it, I'll show you how to go above and beyond. But the basic settings for you guys are just bueno. All right, they're just good. All right. So right now it's done my renders, and what it's done is, since it's done all my renders, it's stored all of my renders and all my passes right here in this BPR pass. If you don't see it, you're going to click right here on the BPR render pass right here, and that's where it's located, right? So you can click on one of these, right? Either the composite or the shaded. I prefer you guys upload the composite. You click on the composite, and it's going to ask you, where do you want to save it? You're going to say BBR composite. Instead of BPR composite, you're going to put your first and last name, last and first name, and the name of the image, and whatever it is. So I'm going to do, oh yeah, the time, underscore ear. All right, that's your naming convention. And then you're going to go, if it's a work in progress, you would put WIP as work in progress. If it's not a work in progress and it's your final, put final. But put work in progress if you're still working on it. And then you're going to hit save. And that's all you do. Well, actually, it's going to bring you to this screen where it goes, oh, what size do you want me to crop it at? You're going to go, whatever you got is fine, honey bunch. And you're going to hit OK on the keyboard. Just like that, and now it's saved. And now you go find that image, you throw it in your chat, you've got a decent render that is the size of your monitor, and you're not sending me thumbnails that are this big that annoy my soul a little bit, but I have to bear it. All right, appreciate you guys. Let's move on to your Discord threads so I can let you go. All right, stop recording it.